Yeah, so welcome once again to today's webinar. My name is Ifeoluwa Shopeju, and I happen to be the founder of or the convener of this webinar. It's the second webinar this year. We've had a couple of webinars in the past, but in the year 2023, this is our second webinar. The previous webinar had Victor Fatomi of Fort Canvas and Mainstar come speak to us on the role of branding, right, in political campaigns, right? And we had that because the election in Nigeria is getting closer, right? In about 2 weeks' time, hopefully, if things go well, the election would have been done and concluded, right? And would have a new president, right? But today we're having a panel. This is the first time we're having a panel session, and my fingers are crossed because I know that it's going to be an amazing session, right? I must say that it was difficult to put to source for this set of speakers, right? And why was it so? It was because going by the conversation that we're going to have today, paradigm shift through the lenses of Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z designers, right? I know I have access to Gen Z designers and maybe more of Gen Y designers, but to find people in the Gen X space, right, was was a Herculean task for me, and it brought me to that thought. Because I look at the American space, I look at international space, foreign space. We see here likes of Michael Beru. If I was to reach out to people in the Gen X outside Nigeria, right, those names resonate with me. Michael Beru, Paula Shah, Susan Kare, right, and the likes of them, right. And I'm like, okay, within the Nigerian industry, right, climb, who comes to mind? But I know Professor Segun Olude. Olude, I don't know if I pronounce your name correctly. I know him very well. I know even though he's outside Nigeria, based in Canada, he connects more with Nigeria, right? His root is grounded in Nigeria, right? From his dress sense, from the conversations he has, right? So it wasn't difficult for me to reach out to him, but to find a female designer who is still practicing in that space or in that generation was difficult. Maybe I'll find them in universities, Nigerian universities, but are they really practicing or they're just lecturing, right? But I'm glad that so I put out a tweet asking people to recommend Gen X designers so I can reach out to them, females. And someone just said, oh, why can't you reach out to someone who is in Shomolu? Shomolu in this context is where you have like the foundation of graphic design. Let me put that way, like where people would go for their graphic design needs, right? And Madam Shakira Bello just came to mind, right? She runs a business from Mushin, Lagos, Nigeria, right? I was like, oh, perfect fit. I reached out to her and here she is. So once again, I want to say thank you to every speaker that I reached out to come share their thoughts and give us a bit of insight into what they think the paradigm shift is, right? And how they've been able to leverage, right, what the present realities are, right? So in 30 seconds, I will start with Emmanuel. Please introduce yourself. I don't want to read your bio, is long. 30 seconds, introduce yourself, and feel comfortable if you want to turn on your camera. If you don't want to, that's fine, but I like seeing people's faces, right? So Emmanuel, over to you. Thank you very much.
All right. Hi, everyone. Feels good to be here, right? It's been a while, Sha. So my name is Emmanuel Michael. I'm a senior product designer at Number. Prior to moving into tech, I used to work in marketing communications, right? So I worked there for about 5 years before I transitioned into tech, right? So it's been like a really, really good journey for me as a designer, moving from communications, and yeah, so that's me.
Oh, thank you very much, Emmanuel. Good to see you again. It's been ages, but It's good to connect with you, and I'm glad to see that you blow my mind away. Let me just leave it there. Bolutive, over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. Good evening. I trust you had a good day. So my name is Bolitife Awakon, and I'm a brand and marketing designer. I started off as a generalist, a couple of years ago, but right now I'm specializing in brand design, and I've worked on a couple of projects, and I'm still looking forward to the great things to be done in this industry. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Bolitife. You're an amazing designer, I know. I don't my heart for you. Praise Philemon. Oh my God. You need to hear this guy speak. Praise Philemon, over to you.
Hi everyone. I'm Praise Philemon. I'm head of brand and design at Block. Block is a fintech infrastructure company in Nigeria. I've always designed and consider, if I didn't do design, I like to say the only thing left for me to do would be design. Prior to being head of brand and design at Block, I used to run an agency. I think that was my first 2 years in design, was running an agency, and it was a very short stint. Then had a freelancing gig before I became head of brand and design at Block. It's been an amazing journey for the last 8 years, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you very much, Praise. You guys need to watch out for Praise. It's going to blow our minds today, right? Young kid on the blog. Okay, let me go to Prof.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you. I'm Segun Oludeya. You already introduced me. I'm pleased to be here. I wear several hats, but the two main hats is working as a designer for an international NGO from here in Canada, and also teaching at the university. But as part of my teaching, I love giving design seminars, both here in Canada and to audiences in Nigeria, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and places like that. So I'm glad to be here and looking forward to what we're going to do today.
Oh, thank you very much, Prof. It's good to have you here. Now, we have Madam Shakira Bello, such an inspiring woman. She inspires me a lot, but we'll get to that some time later. Madam Shakira, are you there? Please, brief introduction, and we'll keep the ball rolling. Thank you. Madam Shakira, are you there? Okay, I guess she's in on a seat at the moment. Okay, we'll get right into it. She will introduce herself as time goes on. Right, so before we delve into the nitty-gritty of today's conversation, right, I can guess certain generations that some of our speakers are, right? For others, I can't guess. But Prof has given me a little secret. In fact, let me tell you something. Prof is not even within the generation XYZ. Going by his age, right? Is way out of the Gen X. But according to him, I think he started practicing design, right, within that Generation X period. And so he identifies more with the Gen Xers, right? So that's why I feel it's even a privilege to have him here, right? Someone beyond or out of this generation. So, Bolutive, are you a Gen Y or Gen Z? You're muted, please.
I'm a Gen Y, but I identify with a Gen Z.
All right. Okay. So Praise, nobody tells me anything. I know Praise. Praise is a Gen Z. Oh yeah, but Praise, tell us, are you a Gen Z or you're a Gen Alpha?
At all. I'm Gen Z, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Yeah, unfortunately. Wow. Prof, let's hear from the horse's mouth. Are you a Gen?
I think
which Gen are you?
If we go by the academic definition, it missed me by a couple of years. But having trained in Nigeria and then transitioning here to Canada and starting again, it puts all of my design career in Gen X. So.
I missed Emmanuel. Oh. Emmanuel, sorry.
Yeah,
I know Emmanuel, I'm confused. Gen Y or Gen Z?
I'm actually Gen Y, actually.
Okay, Gen Y. Okay, that's good. Praise is going to dazzle us today. Madam Shakira Bello, are you there? If you can hear us, please let me know. I guess probably she's having issues with her network. So I'm glad that I have an idea of the generations that you all identify with, right? And I wish I had more Gen Ys on this panel. Sorry, Gen Zs on this panel. But I believe Praise is going to represent them well, right? I believe Praise is going to represent them well. So let's get the ball rolling. There's any questions that will be directed to each of us. Some will be general, right? But and like I said, so I don't take much of your time. I know you spared this moment out of a busy schedule, so I would try and make it as brief, quick as possible. Questions I ask, as much as possible, answer them in the best way you can, but as succinct as possible, right? So, because I have lots of questions to ask, right? But let me first ask a general question, right? I'll go in order from Emmanuel, and I'll go as we go. So, Emmanuel, did you study design, or what's your background in design? Like, did you go to school to study design formally?
Okay, so no, I studied science, right? So I never studied design at all. But before I left school, I started playing with design because I started using CorelDRAW. This was like far back, 12, 13, right? So I started playing with CorelDRAW, but I got tired, right? And then I moved on to marketing comms. So I moved into advertising, but the strategy part of advertising, right? So I wasn't so focused on design. So I think it was when I was going to switch into product design, I had to go to a product school to learn the nitty-gritty of product design. So yeah, that's how it started for me.
Also, how long have you been doing product design?
So this is my third year now.
Okay, fair enough. Bolutife, what about you? Did you study design in school?
Oh no, I was far away from that spectrum. I studied food engineering.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I'd always been a science student, but yeah, to be fair, I got the passion to design from school. So from a computer course in school, and then I was like, okay, they thought I was CorelDRAW, and it inspired me, and I was like, okay, this seems very interesting, and then I decided to pursue it, and I loved it.
Wow. All right, that's interesting. Okay, so for me, I actually studied design. I think myself and Prof, we have some things in common. Maybe I hope to be practicing at Prof's age, hopefully. So I studied design. I studied visual arts. First of all, I studied fine and applied arts at Yaba Tech. Myself and Prof have a connection. I know he also did something in Yaba Tech. Then I moved to University of Lagos and I studied visual arts. Although I specialized in painting, right? Because then graphic design was done the archaic traditional way, where you have to put your cardboard on a board, get stretching tape, apply water, stretch the paper, let it dry, then start constructing characters and all that, alphabets and all that. Man, I didn't want to be that designer, that graphic designer who will be doing that. So I specialized in painting, right? But after school, I switched to graphic design. Yeah. Okay. So, Prof, what about you?
For me, I think it was a privilege to, right out of high school, become a graphic design assistant at 17. So that was the start for me. And I'll call that period apprenticeship until I went into College of Tech, studied fine arts with a focus on graphic design. And worked a little bit in Nigeria and then crossed over here to study graphic design again. So I've always been a graphic designer, and I think I have legit at least 3 decades that I can say, yes, I've been a designer.
Wow, 3 decades. How many of us will still be practicing design? 3 decades. That's what I asked myself, right? And Prof, just to ask you, are there people within your generation who are still practicing that are still practicing design? Like they still open CorelDRAW, they still open design tools, right? Of this generation, of this time. Are there still people that I would like to connect with them, honestly.
In Canada here, yes.
In Nigeria?
Across the US, yes. In Nigeria, probably maybe 1 or 2.
Wow.
Wayne comes to mind that he's still, involved in design. And I don't know too many people in Nigeria who are still practicing. I think some of that is also because in Nigeria, people tend to stop working earlier, so that may be one of the factors.
Wow. Maybe you would be our Michael Beirut.
That would be a privileged position.
Honestly. Wow. Madam Shakira Bello, please
Hello.
confirm it.
Hello.
Okay now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Can you hear us?
Okay. I can hear you when you were asking me to introduce myself, but
Okay, please do that. Please do that.
I'm Shakira Olajimoke Bello. I'm a graphic designer. Art has been my passion and hobby from childhood because I grew up in a printing family. My father was a printer, my mother was a lithographer. And so I experienced the evolution of graphic design printing from childhood to this Gen Z.
Wow.
So it has been a passion for me, even though my parents never wanted me to be a graphic designer, baby. They want me to be a doctor. But I love art. So
wow.
And but I've been growing in the business and excelling, thanks to God.
Wow. Thank you very much, Ma. So what did you study? Okay, I know you studied economics, right?
I study economics in LASU and data processing and operation in University of Ibadan.
Okay. That's good. So I think it's only myself and Prof that have background in graphic design. Praise, what about you? I missed you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, I was supposed to finish studying computer science.
Okay.
I started designing at age 9.
Wow.
I think that was the first time I was going to use the CorelDRAW software, but I stopped for some reason. Oh yeah, they gave out my laptop. My parents are pastors, so they gave out my laptop as they were sowing seed into a friend of theirs. And so from age 9 up until when I got to the university at age 14, I didn't really do much. Then at age 14, in 100 level, towards the end of that time, I was in fellowship, and then someone said they wanted to teach graphic design and web design. And so I decided to go for graphic design. And that was like where it started from. I feel like design was the mistake I don't regret. Because to be honest, if I didn't start design, I would have probably been a developer, like a crazy developer. But then design just did what design does. So I started design at 200 level, and at 300 level, I started a small design studio. Then at 500 level, I stopped design studio. I went on a brief stint for a year, just freelancing on my own. And in 2021, aside obviously in 2021, I got hired by Block as and then 2022 head of brand com. So officially, I would say I started designing in 2015. Unofficially, it will be 2009. That's 2010.
Wow. Someone said Praise is the prince of Gen Zs. It's actually the prince of Gen Zs. Wow. It's so good to hear your stories on how you pivoted into design, right? And it's a delight to see that we're all doing amazingly well, right? From those who had a background in design, for those who life happened to them and they just found themselves in that space, right? And I think there's a lot to learn from because let me be practical with you. When I was studying design, when I was studying visual arts in school, specializing in painting, I can tell you that most of the people that studied design during my days are not practicing design anymore. Some have gone into agri, some have gone into something totally different, right? But you're seeing people who didn't even have a background in design, right? They didn't even go to formal education, who are doing well, extending well. So, and that brings me to a question, everyone. Does it mean that the barrier to entry for designers is low, right? That's why you can have anyone, just because I don't think I could say I just want to study medicine on my own, right? Just okay, because I'm bored by a particular profession, let me just venture into that. And what are your takes on the barrier to entry? Do you think that's what's making the profession not of prestige, or that's what's making people not want to identify as designers? Anyone wants to unmute their mic and speak at this point? Anyone?
I think there are many reasons that you could point to for this. One main thing today is if you're going to remain a designer, it's a very expensive profession to be in. You have to be subscribing to all sorts of applications, fonts, and all sorts of tools to help you continue your work. So that really stops a lot of people from continuing in that profession unless they're making a lot, from it. And going back in time, yes, entry into art school, of course, was based on portfolios. Many people go into school generally and then later find out, oh, this is not my area of passion, and then they move into something else. And so you see a lot of people crossing from whether it's law or medicine into graphic design, either during school or after school. So those are just some of the things that are responsible for the shifts.
Well, thank you very much, Prof. Anyone else?
I find that the other reason, a bunch of reasons, like Prof have said, but on top of that is sometimes at a point in time, when you start to do design, you get to a certain time when design begins to require a certain level of commitment you didn't know you required when you started. Like you mentioned, design obviously has value, but the how you find the value that design has usually deepens with time. And when you start to find that value, what it does in return is it starts to require a balanced input from you, right?
Mhm.
For you to be able to give out a certain level of value as a designer at a certain point, you need to be able to impute a certain level. If you can't impute it, over time, you will start to feel, usually it starts as burnout, then it graduates to what you call imposter syndrome, then it graduates to, maybe this is not my passion, right? And usually it's just that you got to that point, you saw, okay, this is the next level for me in design, but what is asking me to do, I can't put it in, I can't do it yet, I can't, it's right? So I'm not going to do it, I'm going to move into something else. And I think that as we move on, as the years continue to go by, right, that requirement, that design requirement continues to increase. It's not staying on the same level, right?
True.
Constantly increasing, because the problems that design solves, design solve for it to have that massive value are going to continue to be complex, right? And the more complex they get, the more grounded you need to be in design, right?
Absolutely.
And I think not a lot of people can get started. So the barrier to entry for design is very low. It remains low. but the barrier to remaining a designer is extremely high.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So to be able to do design easy, to become a designer incredibly hard. It's a journey of no return in a sense.
Wow, thank you for that. I love the fact that you said barrier to entry is low, but to remain, that's why people like Prof in his generation, he can't even count how many, right? Maybe most of them have gone into entrepreneurship and all that, found something else doing. Michael, please, Emmanuel rather, please, you have the floor.
So another thing is just like what Preza said is, so designing itself is adventurous, right? So you're always in search of something, right? So let me put in context. So let's assume that I started designing when CorelDRAW was 18.
Yeah.
Now, using CorelDRAW, as I grow, as we journey, now there's Photoshop. So now I have to now start searching for information that has to do with Photoshop, right? So now it's easy for me now at this stage of my life because I still have some level of focus, right? And then I'm willing to take some level of risk. Do you understand? So I keep pushing, right? But someone who's within the age bracket of Prof has a lot of things that they're trying to figure out. So at that point, it's easy to get burnt out. At that point, it's easy to just say, you know what, let me move on to something else. You get? So it's just is a very minute percentage of people within that age bracket that are willing to say, I would go 9 yards, all the yards, you know, to keep moving through this journey of design, right? So design is like, so it's like people going into the bush and looking for a treasure. So it's who is willing to go all the way. Do you get? So that's how it is.
Wow.
So that's why someone like Prof at this point of our life is still dragging the table with us, is because at that point he's willing to keep going as much as it takes, finding the information, getting the tools, spending the money. Do you get?
Yeah.
So that's I think that's what that shit is like.
Yeah, thank you very much. But before you go, let me ask another question. And this is to everyone. I'm starting with Emmanuel. What challenges have you faced, right, as a designer, right? What challenges did you face while learning design and while still practicing design? What challenges have you faced?
So first is there's too much information going on everywhere. There's too much.
Okay.
Right. So you need to find, so it was a bit difficult to find focus for me when I started. Do you get? So there's someone telling you, oh, Figma isn't so good as much as XD. There's someone telling you, oh, X is a lot better than Figma. There's someone telling you, oh, before you learn UI, learn UX. There's somebody telling you, no, before you learn UX, learn UI. So there's too much going on, and it was difficult for me to find focus. So what I had to do was reach out to people that I know that had been in that field way before I started, right? To understand how they started. Do you get? Like you said, it's a paradigm XYZ. So I had to look for people within the X and say, how did you do it? Someone within the Z and say, how are you doing it? Then I found my own balance in between and say, okay, this is what I want to do. So for me, the challenge at the time was focus.
Wow, focus. Okay, thank you. Bolitife, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yeah, so what challenges have you faced as a designer?
Well, primarily, I think mine is about understanding how to balance creativity and practicality, sort of. So when I first started, it was more like I'm having all of these ideas jumping around me, but I mean, do they really solve problems and all of that? So it was when I started yearning for how those things that I do or love doing solve problems. That's when I eventually, sort of understood what the whole design space is all about. And then that design is more than design, really. It's more than opening Photoshop or CorelDRAW. So ability to balance that was a bit of a challenge for me when I started out. But after seeking knowledge, basically, from people who have gone ahead, just like Emmanuel said, it's very important to be, mentorship is very important in this space. Watching courses and all of that is not enough. So you need to seek out people who understand this thing better and then pursue how they can help you be on the right path, basically. So that was a very big challenge for me. Also working with clients and understanding what they're trying to achieve. at the, let's say, at the beginning of my career, right, it was also a challenge for me, understanding what clients want. And then I end up doing a lot of things that do not meet the expectation you get. Yeah. So after some time, I also unlearned and relearned a lot of things, and then to get where I am right now. Yeah. So that's what I would say.
Wow. Okay, thank you very much. Praise, over to you. What challenges did you face? You started learning design tools from the age of 9, right? Right. So, but practicing design as a professional, what challenges did you face, right, having to do that? Thank you.
I think on a daily basis, I complain about design. On a daily basis. And it's for good reason. I learned from my parents that a great relationship, you have, there's always something about it that you don't like, but that's what makes it great anyways. But I think I'll bring it down to two. There are two major problems I feel like was redefining for me. Three. The first one was that I was too curious. I wanted to learn too many things at the same time. So sorry, my problems are self-inflicted. It's not really. So I was too curious, and I wanted to learn everything at the same time. I wanted to learn strategy. I wanted to learn design. I wanted to learn graphics. I wanted to learn motion, 3D, and it wasn't until very recently that design sat me down on Saturday morning and then told me, Praise, you have a minimum of 2 decades ahead of you. That's enough time to learn everything you want to learn.
Wow.
Why learn everything now?
Wow.
And I've had to direct teams with very diverse set of skills, and just coming to that conclusion helped, right? Because I see design as a field. I'm a very big proponent of Massimo Vignelli's design is one thought process. I do not think of design as I could be doing operations for all you know. I will call it design, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first problem. The second problem was a very simple problem. It was in 2018 January, and the problem was simple. Why do people need logo design? That was the question, and I didn't understand it. And it was I think it was one of the biggest problems. I asked that question for 8 months. I was charging people for logo design though, but I just didn't understand why people are paying for it. And I don't understand why I should be charging people money for it. And I did this for 8 months. It was a little problem. I mean, there were other problems to ask, but it felt like people survive without great logo design. So why am I spending so much time trying to ensure that curve is 8px or trying to build a brand guideline? What was the point? That was 2018. And that question bothered me. It was a question that I could not ask because then everybody was like, Chris is such a good logo designer. He knows everything. I couldn't ask anybody, right? Because nobody was giving me the right answer. Everybody kept on telling me differentiation, uniqueness. I'm like, that's not it. That's not the answer. I'm sorry. And when I got the answer a year and 6 months later. And the answer was really, really funny. When I got the answer, it helped, like, overall that logo design in itself only had value because of the company it represents. By itself, it has no value. And so the importance of a logo design is predicated on the importance of the company I'm designing it for. And that made sense to me, right? I'm like, oh, okay. So logo design for somebody who runs an Instagram page is worthless compared to logo design for a Coca-Cola company. So that's like a huge difference, because identity just differs based on the risk that's dependent on it. That was the second problem. The third problem was what I mentioned. The third problem I had with design was I started to feel outdated. I started to feel like maybe people don't need design anymore. Like I said, I have a love-hate relationship with design. And I feel like it's the reason why I love it so much. But it was a bigger problem also. it affected everything about how I worked. At the time, I already began to learn strategy a little bit more. And I was questioning everything. I was like, what would design look like in 10 years? And would I be relevant by then?
Yeah.
And I had a problem. I don't know how to see into the future. It was a conundrum for me. Everybody was so concerned about purpose and everything. I just couldn't figure it out. But then what I used to answer my question again was a quote from a movie. He said, "The best teammate is somebody who knows what they're supposed to be doing right now." Right?
Yeah.
That's it. And that was what I took into. I just kept on asking myself the simple question. As a designer, what's my job right now? In this organization, what's my job right now? For this problem, what's my job right now? And as I continued to do that, I started to like figure out more and more value. I started to figure out that, oh, design could solve operational problems. Oh, I could solve cultural problems with design. Or, I could restructure an organization with design. Or, hey, this is what visuals could do. Or this is what illustrations could do. It started to mean a lot more. And the kind of value and kind of relationship I had with design after solving those 3 key problems kind of like, it just entirely redefined. It kind of like makes me go, yeah, design is better than medicine in a sense.
No, absolutely. Praise, thank you very much. Praise, thank you very much for that submission. That's why I didn't want to cut you, and that's why I said I wish I had more Gen Zs on this call, right? Who would, because I feel like you said, you just wanted to learn everything within that period, and you ask yourself what you want to learn. You can learn in 20 years, but the problem with that is that 20 years time, what you thought you wanted to learn now will become totally irrelevant 20 years time, right? So I guess you're already having that paradigm shift, like, okay, all that I need to learn now, that will be valuable and useful for me now, I want to learn it now. Because if I wait a year, 2 years further down the line, that information might not be valuable anymore, right? To be honest with you, what even brought about this topic was there was a random call I was having with people in the community, designers discourse, and there was one thing one guy said. I think he's on this call. His name is I2C. I was like, I need to have a session where we have designers across different generations, right? And that's what keeps me on my toe. Because the knowledge I have today, right, that I think I'll come to Prof and Madam Shakira, the knowledge I have today that I think, oh, it's the holy grail, right? 2 years down the line might not be relevant anymore, right? But that guy said, amidst all the shifts in knowledge, he believes something should still be constant across all generations when it comes to design. And I think that's what Praise has touched on. Design is more than visual, right? Design is about solving problems. Like you said, operational problems. In fact, how you even park your car in your compound, if you have cars, it takes design. I was going out of my compound yesterday, and I saw the way my neighbor locked the gate or closed the gate. And because I'm a designer, I didn't just leave it that way. I was like, how would you lock the gate this way, right? I went to get my key and fixed it. So it's about solving, not just about visuals, right? Design is more than visuals, right? So let me not take your time. Madam Shakira, what challenges have you faced as a designer, right?
Okay. Since like I said, I'm from the Gen Y, so design has been a passion for me, and it was so challenging when I started because, motherhood, taking care of the home, among other things. But because before I got married, when I went into design, one thing that, based on my experience, it was difficult and demanding to source for resources for design. Because then there was nothing like internet.
Internet, yeah.
There was nothing like getting update advanced applications and all that. We're working on Corel 3, Corel 5.
Yeah.
So then what I discovered was that the passion for me to do it like no one does it makes me to put an extra effort in trying to go when I was the last student. So anytime I'm on transit, I watch out for billboards, flyers, and anything that can inspire me. I use them as prototype. So whenever I get back to my system, I'll make sure that yes, I try to practicalize. Even I'm not being paid. Then I visit most of my colleagues that are graphic designers to see how they improve, because there is no way you can source for material. But then I do see the future that a time will come, we'll be able to have access to all those things. So it's more of passion. So I'm so inspired by the fact that the technology that comes with design and printing and application has always been inspiring me in all those ways, all along. But one thing about the inspiration about design is that innovation of machineries. I love new technologies. So anytime I see new technology involves, it sparks my inner passion that yes, I have to go more, I have to do more. So, and you know, design does not limit to you design as a graphic designer. It takes place in marketing, advertising, web print materials, websites, and are developed. In technology fields, there are jobs in video games, application, and software. So when you watch the TV and you see some things, that passion will be passion driven. So that time that there was no resources and we could build on what we had today, that skill has kept us going. And when I met you, when you said you have to keep on learning, relearning, and that really gave me that passion to go and do more. So today, when I see this Gen Z, they won't allow me to sleep. I wake up with all the nights. My husband will keep complaining that this man, don't kill yourself and all that. Well, it's just about passion. So those challenges are not challenges because we faced a difficult one when we started. But now it's more difficult because the application is saturated. I don't know what to go for. When you are doing this, you see another thing involving and you want to fit in the line. So
absolutely,
you just have to keep going because then it was difficult. Now you have access to internet, you have access to them. So to me, it's more of a bit of relief. So
wow, that's good. It's good to hear your story. It's good to hear your story. And by the way, I met Madam Shakira Bello at Bolanle Banwo's The Female Designer Movement. I think in 2019, right? Thereabout. And amongst, because I went to facilitate then too, amongst all the ladies or the female who were at that event, that day event, she seemed to be the oldest, right? I was like, and that's where I connected with her, right? And I can say I'm quite inspired by the kind of thing she's doing, right? She invited me over to facilitate a session at our office with some of our students that she teaches design too, right? And in Mushi, Lagos, Nigeria, right? But what I saw about her was the fact that she was not relenting, like she said, always wanting to evolve with knowledge, learnings, and the like. So it's good to hear your story, Ma. Now, Prof, to you, what challenges did you face as a designer, or are you still facing?
First, let me just say that it's very good to hear everybody and hear your different experiences, which all sum what I'm about to say. Also, I wanted to say or give a shout out to Corel, because that's a Canadian product, if you don't know, that everybody's used it. It's really had an effect on design across Africa before it was unseated by Adobe. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Prof, are you giving up on Corel? Why you say it?
No. I actually use it occasionally because it's the only application that can produce certain files when it comes to, anyway, that's a production topic. But the challenge of design, everyone's touched on it. You know, as we grow, we go through different stages in life. You know, there are times when you're concerned about certain things in life, you know, like Madam Shakira Bello said, you know, you have children and that's a different phase in life. One of the things I had to do in that period when my kids were young is, after being told that my marriage was going to fall apart, I had to know that at 5 p.m., I close at work, go home, we do all family stuff. And at 10, after they have gone to bed, then I get back to my design work. And what was it? It's going back to the office. In those days, there was no internet, you know, that you can just click on something and you have a manual or, you know, a how-to like you have on YouTube. You actually have to open a manual to read, to study what the application you're using is about, and then begin to use it. So where would you find those manuals? They stay with the computer. And where were the computers? The computers were at work. So the transition between home and work happened so frequently just to maintain a good family and maintain a good work habit and still study. I had to find that balance. So that was one major challenge. And I want to encourage anyone who's here today, you know, to understand that you're going to face those challenges and you're going to find solutions to them. Yes, design is part of everything. And yes, passion is going to help you stay the course. If you take passion for design as the basic in life, as a designer, you'll never go wrong. Now, let me give you some examples. If I say fashion, what is the word that comes after that? Design. Architectural, design. Graphic, design. Web, design. Do you want me to keep going? Product, design. So if you stay with design, no matter what the challenges are, no matter what the shifting technology dictates, you will always find your way through. And that's what's really kept me on this path. Just stay with the design. People will say, oh, UI, UX, and make you feel like you don't know anything. But when you sit down and say, hey, wait a minute, before you guys called it UI, UX, I was already designing GUI, graphic user interface, for computer platforms. I've designed things that go on electronics to help people know how to use it. So just changing the name doesn't faze me anymore. You can call it anything. Design on the metaverse next. It doesn't concern me. As long as I stick with design, I'll keep going. And I really like what Praise Philemon said, you know, when he was talking about it, you know, that he has a love-hate relation. I love design. There's no hate there because it keeps me going. Yes, like you said, how you close the gate, how you pack your car, how your tabletop looks. Everything is design. So design is not just a field of study. It is a way of life. And if you accept that way of life, then come what may, you'll find a way. That's it. So that's my story.
Wow. Prof tried to summarize 30 decades of practicing design. So I see some people raise their hands, right? I want to assume you have questions to ask, or probably it's not a mistake, right? So at a point in time, we'll give room for questions, but let our panelists tear down these questions and give insights. Now, in a brief response, Prof, traditional design practices that you are once familiar with, right? Are there still some that you still hold on to so religiously? And what principles do you think are timeless, right, in the design industry, right? Just talk to us on that briefly.
Wonderful. The one thing that I would encourage any designer, no matter where you express yourself, to embrace are the principles of design. And we've learned that figure ground relationship. Why, why do we have to look at continuity? Why do we have to look at proximity, similarity? All those design principles should be at the core of everything we do. And I love teaching that. In fact, I love seeing the faces of people when you show them that they're already using those principles, but they didn't know how or, why. So design principles must always be at the core of what we do. The other thing, sketching. Even if you're a good sketcher or you're poor at sketching, sketching helps you take your thoughts, put it down, because you could waste a lot of time just sitting on the computer, moving things around. But if you sketch or you know how to sketch, you have a roadmap and you can follow that. Even if you miss your way, you actually still in the neighborhood. So learning to sketch is a very important skill, and using it is also good.
Wow. Thank you very much. Madam Shakira, how do you see the future of design evolving, right? And from your own perspective, what steps are you taking to stay relevant and competitive in this with this industry that is changing? Madam Shakira.
Okay. My relevancy has to be based on my, my research, my consistency. Then what I discovered about that makes me to improve more is my teaching. Because if I teach, I have to update myself on my teaching. So that gave me a yardstick for me to do more. Even though if I'm not like the Gen Z, but there are some basic things that works for me from onset that I still put into practice, and definitely it's working for me. And it gives me the passion to say, okay, this generation that are coming, I don't have to meet up with their expectation. I have to learn more. I have to break the ground and do all that things. So I can't relax on that. It gives me the passion. So because of that, I know I can face any other further challenges. And the way technology and the design is evolving, you get to see that with time, artificial intelligence is being a picture. More you have to know how to be practical about that. To know about it, you can't ignore that. So you have to adapt yourself into the system so that you'll be able to relate to your students and have the digital proficiency to be able to be reliable and stay long in the process. So we have to experience lifelong learning. It has to be a lifelong learning so that you can stay relevant anyway.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, man. One thing people don't know is that the more you teach, and like you said, the more you teach, the more you learn. And that's why when I see Prof who is still teaching, I want to believe that Prof is not using the notebook that his lecturer taught him with when he was learning this art or graphic design in school. I want to believe that he has improved access to internet, access to new technologies, is come abreast with these things. Prof, you want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say that I was saving some notes from many years ago that will be relevant for teaching one day. But all those notes just last month were part of one of the batches to go for shredding because everything is on the internet. So, and when I go to school now, I just take my computer, my iPad, and my pencil, and that's it.
Wow.
There's a projector waiting there for me to teach with. So, why sweat it?
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Praise. Over to you. The question I have for you is, I know you mentioned you ran an agency, right? And you've happened to work in-house as a designer, right? Can you briefly share your experience while working in-house, while working in your agency, what differences have you observed in terms of approach to design, design processes, and the expected outcomes, right? In your experiences in these different environments, as an in-house designer or as an agency owner. Can you please share your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, let me mute this person.
Someone-
Go ahead, please.
All right. The difference. Well, working at an agency, I think the major difference I can really mention is there's a limit to the kind of problems you can solve as an agency for a business, right? Usually because you have an external perspective and you're an external figure, right? If I was running a business, as much as I trust you, I would not really put all my problems on your head and say, hey, come solve it. And vice versa, as an agency, I'm optimizing for profit, right? So it means that I would not even care about certain problems if you won't pay my bills.
Yeah.
Right. But in general, the agency client relationship is set up with limits. There's usually a definite amount of time through which you solve a problem, deliver on the problem. And the concept of handoff, right, is what makes agency different from in-house. For in-house, there's no handoff. You start it, you finish it, you continue it, and repeat every time. And agency gives you this idea that you have solved a problem. But when you work in-house, you find out that every solution comes with 3 more problems. Like it's like designs a Medusa head. Is it Medusa? No, Medusa is not the head. It's Hydra. Yeah, you cut one head off, and that 2 springs up. And that's what I learned. I've worked as I started working as lead brand and communications, and became head of brand and marketing, then head of brand and design. And I've always, everything I do, like I always tell my CEO, I tell him, if you put me in COO or any other thing that does not have design inside it, you're on your own. I will leave. It has to have design. And everything I've done has always been a function of design. And what I've learned in-house is that design works best in systems, right? You have to deal with people, you have to deal with tangible and intangible things, you have to deal with people's behaviors, you have to deal with people's style of working, you have to deal with processes, structure, you have to deal with I work in fintech, you have to deal with compliance, you have to design with compliance in mind, you have to do all of those extra things. And as an agency, it doesn't care. If a fintech company comes to an agency, I want to build a logo. They build a brand identity and a system, and it stops there. If you're working in-house and you're building a logo, you're thinking all the way. You're doing the logo. It was in-house. I found out that design can have bugs. I never figured that out ever in my life. But design could have problems. Like you could complete a design right now, and the next minute, not the next day, the next minute, you just tried to use it, and you find out that there's a problem here.
Yeah.
All of the learnings you've learned, you read books, you've read all of those books, you've listened to Beirut and Palasha talk and talk, and in your head you're like, I know what to do. I used to tell my designers, my team, I said, I understand that you guys are good, you've read and you've listened, but in real life, those books have a limit to what they can do. You need to now take them and apply them in context. I think for in-house, problems get more complex. You can work with the CEO. You can unlock deeper value than you can do with an agency. I'll give a very good example. I have many block, but I can give one specific example, and it would be the first 4 months when I joined. When I first joined the company, we were Tech Advance, and
Yeah.
initially they brought me on to be a marketing designer, but they made a mistake in my contract, and then wrote brand and communications manager. And I
Wow.
called the CEO and said, CEO, this is a mistake, but this sounds more interesting than just pushing pixels. So I'm going to take this job and figure it out. And I didn't knew strategy. I knew strategy, but I had not done strategy in its full form. And so I said, okay, let's start strategy. So I started. The way you learned it was do vision, do mission, do core values. And I started doing all of those extra. It didn't take me long to figure out that vision, mission, and core values were not strategy. But I couldn't know it because I had done it. If it was an agency, I'd have done vision, mission, and charged you dollars and gone. Right, but I was in-house and I figured out that these things were not solving their problem. These guys had a name problem, but vision and mission is not changing anything. We are still having those problems. And I think what solved the problem was creating a new name for the brand. And how I did create that name was very interesting format, but we did create a new name for the brand. And what has happened since then is you create that new name, it solved that problem, but then opened up 5 more problems.
Absolutely.
And then you must have individual problems again. And it kept on happening over and over and over again. And because it's in-house, it's not perfect. You're having to deal with the CEO's impulses. You're having to deal with a particular department that doesn't like you, or a C-level executive that just hates your guts for no reason. You're having to manage a lot of things. I think working in-house is first is rewarding, because the amount of experience I've gotten in the last 2 years, I don't think I would have gotten it in an agency or working freelance. I can promise that. But I also think that it helped me understand that design is like Prof said, design is design. All you have to do is just add it to anything. And so whenever I got new responsibilities, I just tell myself, let's put design behind the back. And that is very good, right? I remember that we had to merge 2 components within our company, and I just decided that okay, for the process for this next 2 months, I'm a process designer. I'm just designing process to solve this problem, right? At the time also I had to restructure the company. I called myself, okay, for this set of problems, so I am an operations designer. And so whenever I have those one-on-one conversations with my line manager, and they go, your next step is to go become a COO or a strategy officer, I just tell them, please, no. If it's not a design center role, it's not for me, right? And I used to tell them that everything's a function of design. And I think that how I do design in my organization, which essentially how I do design in my organization has influenced how my organization itself does design, right? Like how everyone thinks about design in Block is essentially not just hey, go do graphic design or go create a logo or a piece of work. Design has now permeated into like to a large extent the thinking of how we build products, how we make decisions, how we do campaigns, how we sell, all of that extra. But yeah, in-house agency, you get to do a lot more in-house. You can break more things in-house. You can make a lot of decisions in-house on your own. While with an agency, you are just dependent on the CEO liking your work and presenting reviews at the end of the day. So an extent to which problems you can solve, to the complexity of the problems you can solve. So if I was to pick in-house over agency every time.
Wow, thank you very much for that in-depth analysis and sharing your experience comparing the two. Bolutife, so what's his name? I think Emmanuel talked about risk taking, but I want to center that question to you, right? What's the importance of experimentation, right, and risk taking in design, right? And how do you approach? How do you suggest we approach pushing boundaries rather, right, and finding new solutions? Because most times, what I've realized about certain designers is that they become comfortable, right, with what they are known for, right, with what they know, right. They don't want to take risk, right. Take for example someone who I know a lot of designers within my category, my generation, who are stuck because they don't want to take risk, right? Step out of their comfort zone. And they don't know that it is necessary for you to step out of your comfort zone because times are changing, right? Even though you have a foundation, right, does not mean you cannot evolve into other things, right? And I'm happy to see what Praise Philemon is doing. So, Bolutife, can you just talk to us briefly on the importance of experimenting, right? Taking risk, pushing boundaries, and all that, and how that has worked for you as a designer?
Okay, thank you, Ife. Yeah, so I think that taking risk is very, very important for a designer. As a designer, right? Everybody is allowed, like you mentioned, pushing boundaries and then doing things out of the normal is what makes people really stand out, right?
You're muted, please. Okay.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So that's what makes people stand out, right? But I'll also say that when taking risks, it's very important to take informed risks, not just any risk, right? Because I know that when you, as a designer, we just want to be creative, you want to create stuff. I mean, you want to show that you know what you're doing, step out of the comfort zone and learn new things. I mean, a couple of us really have that issue because we want to do bigger things. We end up learning so much, and then we're leaving behind the most important things, right? So it's very important to stay informed as a designer who wants to take risks. Very, very good to take risks because that's what sets you aside as a designer, right? But it can also be challenging. I know that every one of us, we might have come across one challenge or the other because it's important to be creative and forward thinking, right? Because those are some of the things that contribute to development, you know, and exciting design directions. But when you're taking the risks, the root of that risk taking should be the problem you're trying to solve, right? So you should not go out of the risk, out of the problem you're trying to solve. So when you're grounded in the problem solving first, it informs every other decision that will come out of as after that process, right? So that's what I would say, right? So you must be able to deliver functional and practical and then designs that are also appealing to the target audience. Basically, the problem you're trying to solve, the objective and goals you're trying to achieve as a designer must be on top of mind. I think that's a very one of the approaches to taking informed risk and then breaking boundaries really with designs, right? So if you're an effective risk taker, it's important to also understand that you have a solid design process, right? So those are things that will help you, you know, like checks and balances, really. So you're saying, okay, if I'm taking this risk, I'm going above and beyond on this project because I want to deliver, I want to blow the client's mind. You must also have measures in place to say, okay, have I gone beyond the scope of what I'm supposed to do? Does this design I'm trying to deliver, does this solve the problem of this person, of the client? And then you're able to check and balance those things, right? So that you don't overshoot, basically. I know that, and that's where strategy comes in. You know, we always say about left and right brain for strategy and creativity. You know, having to balance both is very important, right? I know Praise mentioned things about, I mean, questioning and being curious, and then Prof also mentioned things about passion. So some of those things, right, they also help drive delivery. They also help drive the quality and output of work that you deliver. Yeah, so that's what I'd like to contribute.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really love what you said, right? It's not about taking risk, right? We should take calculated risk, right? There are certain things that you need to know, right? To be able to take. You can't move from the unknown to the known. You move from the known to the unknown, right? That's why it's foundational to at least know what you're doing, right? And knowing, okay, am I going out of place? Because some persons will say certain rules are not to be broken, right? But there are certain rules that you can break if you understand the rule first, right?
Yeah.
And then you can break it in an informed way, right? And
Yeah.
all that. Emmanuel, over to you. Now, you are the only product designer here. Okay, well, by your bio, product designer. I think Madam Shakira too also got certified in UI UX design, but to Emmanuel, who has been practicing for like 3 years, right? How do you approach, or what's your take on incorporating user research, right, and feedback in your design work? What role do you believe that user-centered design plays, right, in the design process? Just share your thoughts to us on that, right?
Okay, so before I leverage on design itself, so let's go back to when I was in communications, right?
Okay.
So at the time, I was working with brands like Mattel, Jameson, name a few, right? So the job was to position the brand in front of its target audience, right? So how do we do these things? It's based off of research. So I want to sell a new product that belongs to Mattel. So let's say Mattel EXO, right?
Yeah.
How do I sell that product to people? First, I need to understand who their target audience is, what they like, right?
Mhm.
So I know they like to party, they like nightlife, right? So what are the people that like nightlife? People within the age of, let's say, from 16 to about 40, right? So what kind of environment do they want to be in, where there's so much music, where the light is not white, it's a bit red, blue, you know? So if all of these things I did then informed how I'm able to create a strategy for my clients. So I bring that same thing into product design, right? So every product that you use is influenced by a person's need.
Yeah.
Irrespective, right? So the reason why there is a fintech app that ensures that you're able to make transfer from Nigeria to the US is because it is one person's problem right now. And
Absolutely.
you are able to see to that need. And how
Yeah.
are you sure that, okay, this person's problem makes sense? Is that, okay, I know that it is Ife Oluwa's problem, but let me see if it is 10 other people's problem like Ife. Then I send out a question and say, please, oh, is it your problem? And then I get 30 or 50 responses. Then it becomes not just an hypothesis, it becomes a fact that, oh, it's a problem.
True.
Right? So that is how it works for me as a product designer. So before I go into doing anything that is design related, I always want to ensure that the problem that I am solving is a fact. Because it's easy to have an idea, but mind you, an idea might not be viable if it's not
True.
tested out.
True.
Do you understand? So I can say
True.
that I woke up today and I said, oh, I think that somebody might have a problem of sending money to Russia from Nigeria. I think is not enough reason to build a product. Do you understand? So I think it's just 0 from the entire level of 1 to 10. It's just 0. So taking it to 1 is me being able to now go out and ask questions like, do you guys think it's a problem? Why do you think it's a problem? Has this been a problem you've had before? So I'm beginning to ask questions, trying to get as much feedback as I can get from the users. Now, it doesn't end there. It gets to a point where, so I noticed these are problems that people are facing, and I begin to draft out possible solutions, right? Now, it's not enough for me to go back on Figma to go and start designing. I would take those same things I figured out back to them and say, okay, so what if I do this to fix this problem? Does it make sense to you? Oh yeah, they'll tell you, yes, it makes sense. But imagine if you had this to this, I think it'd be better, right? So that's where iteration comes in. So there's really nothing that I want to do that is product centered, that is not user influenced. Do you understand?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
at the back of that, for me as a product designer, is the business needs, right? So in as much as I am focusing on the users, at the same time, I'm also focusing on the business, because it's easy for us to think about the user holistically and forget that there's the business need. So there has to be that intersect between saying, so yes, the users, the feedbacks from them also matter, but the feedback from the business also matters alongside. Do you get? So, but let's not go far from your question here. But yes, user feedback is very important, right? From the research to your solutions back to them, to even when you're done building the product or designing, even before building the products, even before stressing my developers to build out here, I'm done designing on Figma, right? I run my prototypes. So I use a product called Maze to go and start, getting feedbacks again. That, okay, well, so this is what the design will look like when we are done building it. But test it here, right? Even at that point, you will get some feedbacks that you would think that you have solved for. So that's why I tell my designers where I work, I tell them every day, I said, the human need changes per seconds, right?
Absolutely.
So a person tells you they want to eat bread now, go and come. They'll tell you, oh, I want to eat bread, but I think a bit of butter will do. Add a bit, right? So you can never satisfy the human need. You can never be too sure that this is what they want. So you must always get feedbacks from them as much as you can. But you must also learn to create that boundary, because sometimes they can run you mad. Do you get it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly.
Whoa, Michael, thank you very much for that succinct insight, right? Even beyond, and I'm glad I centered on product design, right? But I also believe that for you to solve a problem, right, research is very key, right? Even so, someone said, and just like Prof said, right, forget the nomenclature, right? Because times are changing and all that. He used to design UI in his early days, right? But maybe UI was not the in thing then, or was not what it was called. But because now it is UI UX, people don't want to be associated with that term, right? But I still believe that even to design something as little or somewhat insignificant as a logo design, as a logo, research is also required, right? Research has always been the basis for good design solutions, right? Because if you don't research what the problem is and how to solve it, you will not be able to profile solutions that would solve that problem, right? And so I believe, like you said, user research is very key, right? Is very key. And making the user the center of the product you're building is very important, because obviously you are building for users. Users are going to use your product, right? So thanks so much for that insight. Prof, let me come back to you. We have about let me see. I have lots of questions, but I'm trying to manage time, right? So we don't spend so much time. Prof, there's a question I have for you, and probably maybe Madam Shakira, is for you, what are you doing, right, as a person, to stay current and informed about design trends? Because in this age and time we are in, it's an age where trends, technologies, right, evolve per second, right? This year, 2023, you are hearing different design trends, right? Schemorphism and all those, whatever. Some just come up with a list of trends for the year and all that, right? What are you doing as a person, right, to stay current and informed about these trends, technologies, best practice, and what role do you believe that professional development plays in a designer's career, right? I hope you understand my question.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's a very good question for me, and I'll take a little bit of time this time to address it, because I feel most of my answers before have been very short. There's a saying that we shape our tools and our tools shape us. We shape our tools and our tools shape us. So what we're using is going to dictate what we do, and what we do would dictate what is coming. So at one time, and this is where I get to show off my museum for design.
Wow.
Every designer had to have one of these, and
What's
you had
that, please?
to learn how to use it. And I'm going to open it up and just show it to you. Some of you would probably not have seen this before. So one day we should actually create a design museum in Nigeria, where you have things like that, right? So all of those
Wow.
tools are, your compass, your sextants, and all the things in there, dictate how you work. And you have to learn how to use these tools. And then you go through that stage, you get to the next stage. Of course, what drove me to Canada was to learn how to use the computer. But after that particular stage, I went through a phase when we used these, right? And you had to learn how to use them properly. If you know about rock ring pens and
Rock
ink
ring,
system,
yeah.
I don't know if you can see them. That was
Yes.
another generation. And we had to learn how to be good at what we do using these tools. So that phase goes by, and today we're sitting in front of computers. And there's something I want to show you as well. How many of you have seen this before? That's a slide. That's a slide. So at one time, we will take something like this because we want to see what it is. You have a handheld slide projector or viewer, and you stick this into it. So you turn the light on so you can see what's on the slide. And
Wow.
you use this,
Magnifier.
you open it up, and you place it on that just so you can have a close view. That was how we practice design. But today, it's pinch, swipe,
Zoom.
zoom, and everything. Times have changed. So anybody who wants to stay in this generation is done. This is just memento. If you want to stay in that generation, you're done. All the books behind me are a source to knowledge. Where is the source for knowledge that you can go get it? Today, I have more books than you see behind me on my iPad. But most of those books are books that have been created or written in the last 20 years or so. Now, knowledge never dies. I can go into something like this that's out of print, pull it out, and get knowledge from it. So how do you stay current? Nothing really dies if it's true knowledge. You just build on it. There's something called a foundation. When archaeologists are digging, they find different levels of civilization in the same area. So it's the same for us as humans. We have to keep saying, okay, we're done this level. We're moving on to the next one. So subscribing to newsletters in technology, medicine, law, and various fields of study that you would think, why is a designer interested in those? It's not the time for me to be debating one thing or the other. When a medical company comes to me and they say, we have a new tool that we want to sell. How do we get this out? This is what it does. You already have concepts about medical devices in your head. You can ask intelligent questions. I think problems happen when people just want to stay in one area and say, I'm a designer and that's all I am. It's not going to last you forever. You've got to keep evolving. Now, you get to a certain age, you go, okay, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. The metaverse, not yet. It's going to take a little bit before we get there. Why? Because you've seen trends come and go. Don't let the trends dictate you. You are the one who's going to dictate the trends if you're in the position to do so. And so just keep studying, keep practicing, keep changing your tools to fit the time, and you'll never grow old.
Wow. Prof, thank you very much for that. Some person said they didn't see the tools. I think from the first one you shared, yeah, that sounded familiar to me. I think I'd used some of those. Are those rotring sets as well?
It doesn't stay in the case very well.
Okay, it doesn't stay in the
that's
case.
why I can't show it to you. Yes.
Okay.
But they're there. And of course, I have all sorts of tools on my table, which some of you are familiar with, like this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I have all sorts here that I brought to show you, but I wanted to just use those ones to show that we live in transitional times at all times.
Absolutely.
You know, you can't say, oh, this is it. This is going to be designed. Then if you're that way, then the GUI that I used to do is going to be replaced by UI, and you'll be like, what's that?
Mhm.
So UX is going to come on top of it. And then you're going to find AI is the latest thing. So when we keep up here, we can keep up here as well.
Yeah. Wow. Prof, thank you very much for that. Madam Shakira, are you there?
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, so my
Okay.
question for you. No, I think Prof has answered that. I have a question for you, and I'm asking this because
Can
you're
I
also
add? Okay.
okay, no, you would
Okay.
add if you want to add to that, but I have a specific question for you, right?
Okay.
You are a graphic designer, right? And you are
Yes.
also in the print, you're also in the print space,
Yes.
right? From the changing landscape of design, right? Can you share your experiences on how you've been able to handle both print media, digital media, right? Prof has showed us tools that he used while in the days, right? And now there's the iPad, there's the Adobe Illustrator and the likes, right? From your own standpoint, right? From the print point of view, digital, whatever, can you share your experience on how you've adapted to this changing landscape, right? And how you hope to evolve, right? Unfortunately, you can't show us some of your code plate and all those things as a printer,
Yes.
right? But
Yes.
can you just talk us through on what it has been like and how you've adapted?
Okay. I appreciate what Prof has said, because I do tell people that design print is the mother of all professions. There is no way whoever you are, a doctor, a lawyer, any profession, a print has to be involved. So over the year, I learned from my mom. My mom was a lithographer. At this point in time, a digital machine came and our work stopped. She
Wow.
couldn't continue. She couldn't continue. So at that time, just because she knows that I'm a fan of technology and innovation, I have to tell her that, Mommy, in this trend of new things and new innovation, I know she's not that learned. It's just that she's fortunate to learn in that space, and she excelled because she was the first lithographer in Mushin.
Wow.
And at tenacity, and she's just like a man. So I learned so many things from her experience when I was in school, because I can see that at the time she was forcing her way to stay relevant in the industry, and she wasn't fitting at the time, because at the time lithographers stay in the dark room. I experienced being seen her in the dark room and all that, processing film and all other things. So all those things fade out with time, with technology. So the adaptation of you learning trying to stay relevant, it is you trying to adopt the new technology that comes in. What I do is this: anytime I buy any machine, in terms of maybe digital form, large format, or whatever, I don't allow it to stay beyond 2 years. I tend to look for what is in vogue, what are they using now?
Yeah.
Because that will keep you relevant. People will come. That okay, when you are a fan of new technology, you want to explore.
Yeah.
The future of printing now, I get to read an article where I heard about e-ink. So I'll just sit down and I'll imagine e-ink. What is e-ink? So that will really prompt you to say you cannot just stay irrelevant. You just have to keep moving. So as year goes back, from the CTP to whatever, things are just involving you. You hear about, you are still trying to force your way into buying. Those machines are expensive anyway.
Yeah.
Well, by the time you see that yes, this is not going, you quickly sell them off. I sell them off because in Nigeria, maybe in the north they don't get to be aware of the technology. I sell them off and I'll quickly get a new machine. Then in terms of design, just the way we do on machineries, we try to improve ourselves. I can remember there's one thing that happens in my early days. jobs are being sent as PDF format, in PDF format to Nigeria, and hardly will you get somebody to open it then. I have to learn how to open the PDF. And I was earning a whole lot. But those are things that gave me passion. I can open a file for you for 20,000.
Wow.
Then, and you know, the people they will go around trying to open the PDF file. That means that my efforts to crave for knowledge and to know about the new technology that involves has kept me relevant in this space. Even though I cannot really match up with the Gen Z, I'm trying to force my way, because you know they are going an extra mile to do new things. You hear them saying this, I have a son now, so we are always dragging it. Mommy, no, this is not. I said no, this is what it was. It was. So how I decide to stay relevant is to try to stay up to date with the latest technology trend, to remain competitive in the job market in daily life. And technology is constantly evolving, so it is important to continuously educate yourself and develop new skills. Consider taking online courses, attending workshops or conferences, reading articles, books on technology and all that. Then getting the best way to learn about technology, using it, trying out new gadgets, new apps, new softwares, you know. Then network with technology professionals, building relationship with technology professionals, like meeting professor now. I'm glad I'm on this platform. So it's going to share a lot of knowledge, you know, valuable insights and information about new technology trends. Then considering joining technology-focused professionals association or participating in tech-related events and meetups. You know, you stay informed, keep up with the latest technology news by following relevant blogs, websites, and social media accounts. This will help you to stay informed about new advancements and trends. Then you keep on embracing technology in your personal life, incorporating technology into daily routine that can help you to be more comfortable. Because, you know, I believe once a designer is a designer for life. Yeah. If you are working with passion, yes. So you take up relevance. You have to be in the view. Like it was a challenge when you called on me that Mama said, wow, I don't think I would do, but you know, I have to challenge myself. I have to be here. Let me come and see and learn. So you have to be in that space to keep you relevant. So that is how I intend to stay relevant.
Wow. Thank you very much, Pa, for that. I think, honestly, if not for time, I'll just let everybody talk as long as they want to talk, because I know there's a lot you want to say, but for time's sake, you're trying to keep it as brief as possible. Thank you very much. So for those of you who don't know what CTP is, CTP is computer to plate. I don't know if I'm wrong.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, and with technology these days, you don't need to. There's the digital machine. You don't need to say you want to do plate, blah blah blah. In fact, you know that understanding how print works this time and age, knowledge of I need to design in CMYK might not be relevant anymore, because if it's DI, you don't need to bother about whether it's CMYK or whatever. Just print and you're fine. Do you get? But for those who are still, for cost's sake, for access to the kind of machineries that they want, that will make some designers still design. Oh, you need to understand CMYK, which is good, right? But technology, most things are done on mobile devices, on screens, right? But I think I've learned a lot. Now, praise Emmanuel and Bolutife. You are in the Gen Z. Bolutife says she identifies as Gen Z. Now, this question, you guys will touch on it, right? Emerging technologies are becoming the norm, right? AR, VR, blockchain, AI, and all that. What role do you think these technologies will play in the future of design? As a designer, how do you think it would impact your work as a designer? What steps do you think we should be taking both the Gen X, the Gen Ys, the Gen Zs, to prepare for these changes. The changes are already happening, right? What role do you think these technologies would play, right, in the future of design? The ARs, the VRs, Web3, automation, AIs, and the likes. Let me start with, they say ladies first, after men. So, Bolutife, let me start with you. Bolutife, is Bolutife here? Okay. Praise, can you go ahead, please? But before you go ahead, Praise, Prof said something. Okay, someone said CMYK RGB, even on DI print, is still important. Okay, very slightly. Okay, agree. But methodologies of absolutely. So, okay, Bolutife, are you back? Okay, Bolutife is not here. Praise, can you go ahead, please?
Okay, I think the question is the same question. It's really similar to the same question Prof answered. So I'm going to start with the same way he started. We shape our tools shape us. And then I'm going to also steal another line from his answer, which is you learn first, then your skills catch up. And that's really what happens with the emerging technologies. So the funny thing is, I never liked crypto. I never learned crypto Web3 because I felt like there was really nothing new to learn. There's nothing different about designing for Web3. When I speak with people who do it, the only difference is the fonts that they choose, the saturated colors that they choose. But the actual principles still remain the same. So with VR and AR and the emerging technologies, one thing is going to remain consistent, regardless of whatever innovation that happens. The principle of design are always going to remain principles, and they are principles for that reason. They've never changed. Think about it, from print to visual to VR to AR, regardless of what it is, the principles remain very important. And anyone who is, I think the joy of being able to revisit those principles is the one thing, constantly revisit them. And I get to learn that the more time you have spent as a designer, the more you get to appreciate those principles. They start to look like they are new to you. Every time you look at them, you go, "Oh, proximity! Wow, this is so beautiful!" Right? That's one. Second thing with emerging technologies is that you need to be glad that it exists, because they have just provided you opportunities to express even more, and to solve problems even faster. They afford you the ability to be more efficient, to be more effective, and sometimes to be able to solve problems at very big, at a very large scale. Someone once asked me, "What does world class mean?" And my answer to world class is being able to solve a problem that is relevant regardless of the geography. So it means that you're not really doing one crazy top class work. No, that's not it. You solve a problem that is relevant to a Nigerian and also relevant to an American and also relevant to a Canadian, they're world class, right? That is world class to me. And these tools have basically drawn, like they've made that external world closer to you, right? And you can use them to achieve that level of work. And so we should be grateful that they exist, and we should make use of them. But more importantly is, again, back to what Prof said, we need to understand that the value of us as designers is not first in our skill. It's usually first in what we know and how we use it. And the skill part of it, the craft, right, is in the how, right? Um, these emerging technologies, they are not designed in themselves. They're not the what, they're not the why. They're just the how. And the how is to always change. But the what, the why is to remain the same. The results, the solutions, and how you approach the problem will always remain the same. How that you do it, the medium and the message and the recipient, these are the things that actually consistently change, right? The what defines design trends is not really the designers themselves, but really the audience that's receiving it, right? I used to say this 3-4 years back. I said serif will have a comeback. As a big proponent of serif. And very recently, Burberry redesigned their logo back to a serif logo. I might look very, very minimal. I'll give it 5 more years, and everybody will start going back to serif because everything is just a cycle, right? And so when you understand that everything here is just a tool, right? Whether it is Excel, whether it is Notion, I mean, I love Notion, by the way. Whether it is Notion, Excel, your pencil, Adobe, whether it is Canva, they are just tools. And when you understand that they are tools, you will stop fighting them. You will stop saying they are here to replace you, because they are not. Just think of yourself as a god, right? And they are just your playthings that you use to make yourself happy. So no matter the future evolution that will happen in the world, right? No matter how crazy the future would look like, a designer will always remain relevant. And the only way you remain relevant is if you remind yourself consistently that you are not your tools. I think that's the best way to actually put it. VR and AR, as great as they are now, they eventually fade out. The same way Bluetooth, infrared. There's a time infrared was the thing. You could not even fathom Wi-Fi coming into existence. Everyone was just enjoying putting their Sagem phones just side by side just to transfer 10 kilobytes of music, right? And that's what infrared to us then is what AI and VR and AR is to us right now. And in the very near future, they are going to also become outdated. And so if you are so concerned about tools, you're really, really missing out on the point of why you're a designer. Like I said, the more time you spend in design, and I'm pretty sure Prof and most people who are on this panel see, the more time you spend in design, the more you start to see that the things that make you a designer are not the things you use at all, right? What makes you a designer is, like Prof said, is here, right? It is why you walk into a place and people will listen. I've always said, AI will not make my CEO listen to me, even though I can be the best illustrator in the world. If I said, CEO, we have to rebrand this logo, he will not listen to me because I'm designing the best AI, and I know this, right? And a lot of designers need to come to that agreement that the craft, as important as it is, right, does not move mountains. What moves mountains is the designer, not the design, right? So no matter what the future is going to be, you remind yourself that you're a designer, focus on the principles, focus on the why, the what, the how, and the how will always catch up. That's the only thing, the how will always catch up. Again, we shape our tools shape us. I think that's, if the only thing you get from this entire thing is going to be one thing, it's just going to be that. We shape our tools and our tools shape us. The only reason VR, AR, and so on are actually existing is because a particular designer sat down and thought, I don't like doing these things over and over and over again. I need somebody to give me an easier way, right? Everybody here, if you're an identity designer, you once complained about having to do brand guidelines. Brand guideline has to be one of the most boring things to do in a logo design for most people, right? If an AI comes to and then says, hi, if you type in a prompt here, I will give you a detailed 400-page brand guideline. I won't complain. I will pay for it. Right? So if you're having to complain and say, oh no, it's taking my time, it's taking my job, and I'm beginning to wonder, is brand guidelines the reason why you charge so high. And that's why I
Mm.
love the Chris proponent, which is my last point. I love the Chris Do proponent. Chris Do, as much as you tend to think Chris Do talks a lot about pricing and everything, what Chris Do really does is that it tries to reshape how designers offer their services, right? It is
Yeah.
that the strength of your thoughts, the originality of your thought, the uniqueness of the fact that you are the one thinking it is what gives it value, not the thought in
Yeah.
itself, right?
Yeah.
And I really hope that answers the question. No matter what the tools that are out there, always be grateful that they exist and ask yourself, how
Yes.
can this make my life better? So that's the job. The goal is to do plenty with less, not to do plenty with plenty.
Wow.
Cheers.
Wow. Thank you very much, Praise. Prof was just giving you thumbs up, emojis. Bolutife, do you have anything to add to that? And Emmanuel.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
please
you.
go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I dropped off for a bit because my network. I'm back now. Right. So I mean, when Praise was talking, something came to my mind, and it was a quote by Steve Jobs. Says, "It's not how it looks. Design is just not how it looks or how it feels. It is how it works." So I mean, you always have to have it at the back of your mind that functional design is priority. You don't just do design that is fine, right? So I mean, bringing that home to the new technologies coming up now and then, right? I've used a couple of them, and I know that, well, these things are not here to replace designers. Basically, I know that there have been that debate, that these things will replace developers, this thing will replace copywriters and all of that. Yeah, but I'm of the opinion that they just help us work, enhance our work. Really, they help us work more efficiently, right? So I mean, like the example that Praise gave, brand guidelines is one of boring things, right? I also feel the same way. But yeah, I mean, you can just sit and prompt an AI system to develop one for you, and then everybody's happy, right? Yeah, so that's one thing I think. So when Mrs. Belosu was talking about printing and all of that, yeah, so that there's 3D printing now, right? You don't have to print something out and fill it, right? So you can just prototype it in 3D, and then you know how it feels in real life, right? AR, VR, and all of those things, right? They all just up to enhance. You can't take away, and everything boils down to foundations. So if you are not a grounded designer, you are easily swayed with all these things. I mean, things are coming up, trends are coming up, and then you just want to follow and tap into all the trends, right? So I have a bit of marketing knowledge as well. So in marketing, so as you're marketing for a brand, and then because new trends keep coming up, you keep changing the design direction of your brand. It's going to that's an error, really, because you're going to confuse your audience, right? So because of the advent of new technologies doesn't mean that you change design direction, or because the company is known to be a minimalistic brand, and then there's the advent of 3D or grainy gradients, design trend, and then you just want to jump on that and then infuse that into your design, right? So all these things, right, it's just when you have a solid background, you have a solid foundation, the process, the principles of design should drive any other thing that you're doing. So these things just help us. They help to enhance our work, help us work more efficiently, and to deliver work in time, right? Without having to stress over a lot of things. Before, Lorem Ipsum used to be like a go-to thing for most designers who do not have time or not very experienced in copywriting. But then you now you can just prompt an AI generator to a copy generator to develop something relevant to you, and then it blows your mind. So these things, I've used a couple of them, right? Just like I said before, right? And it's just about, you have to be smart too to use these things. That's why I said foundation is very key. When the thing is generating very bad responses for you, you are able to detect because you already know the foundations. You are just throwing around ideas. You want a new perspective. And that's why you're asking, how do I do this? Or how do I go about this? How do I achieve this? And then it just helps you. So overall, these new technologies have a profound way that it's going to impact the design, right? The field of design and every other field, right? In a great way, right? But it's going to come and go. I mean, the buzz all around. When copy.ai came and everybody said, they're going to, take copywriters out of their jobs. I mean, the buzz went down, and then there's ChatGPT. There's a whole lot of them now. At the end of the day, I think I'm of the opinion as well that the buzz is going to go down. Everybody's going to go about their lives normally, right? But at the end of the day, we should always have at the back of our mind that it's important to know that these technologies are great to enhance the design process. But I mean, it's the creativity and the expertise of the designer that ultimately drives the success of the design, basically. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much for that, Bolusife. Who is that, please? I don't know who's screaming there. Bolusife, thank you very much for that. Michael, are you there? Do you want to say anything?
So
Okay.
honestly, I feel like everyone has said everything, but I think the only thing I'm just going to say is, so my design mentor will always tell me something. He will say, if you know Sabi, you know Sabi, right? Even if they give you all the tools in the world, if you know Sabi think, you know Sabi do nothing. So you might have Figma, you might have Photoshop, you might have this. If you're not able to think, if you're not a creative person, if you're not someone that can think outside of the box, you'll be stuck using those tools. So yeah, everyone has said, what we need to hear. So yeah, kudos to everyone.
Thank you very much for that. Praise, Michael, Bolusife. You guys have actually touched on you've dealt with that question well. Just to even add, the questions I'm asking you, ChatGPT was what gave me those questions. I just said, okay, as a panelist or as a moderator, can you give me 20, 50 questions that I can ask panelists within the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z generation? And he gave me all these questions I'm asking you guys, right? So I didn't have to sleep and wake and say, what question would I ask? But even when I got those responses, I was able to understand those questions, right? Craft them in a way that touches to that connects with individual speakers, right? Madam Bello, who is a print professional, right? Michael, who is a product designer, right? And all that, right? So for me, it makes it easier for me, right? Take for example, I was like, how do I craft the topic I want this webinar to be, right? And I kept asking myself, okay, this. But you know that what ChatGPT did for me was that I just gave the prompts, right? And it gave me suggestions, but still, I wasn't a fool to just take what it gave me, right? I had to refine, right? I had to say, okay, no, this is not relevant. Take off this. This doesn't apply to this, right? So I feel what you said is actually spot on, right? These tools are meant to make work better, easier, make us to think more, rather than do more, rather than have to execute. Right? The more you can think, right, and you can leverage these tools, the better for you. I saw a tweet, was it yesterday or so? Some Galileo AI, where for product designers, you just impute, okay, what you want it to do, or please design a screen that allows my user change his password and whatever. And the AI will just design the UI for you, right? And so are you asking yourself, okay, but if you don't have that foundation, right, you really wouldn't know what to even ask this AI, this tool, right? If you do not have, there's something I wanted to ask, and anyone can touch on it, is how creativity is about thinking. That's what I know creativity to be. To be creative, you have to be a thinker, right? But you can be creative, but not have that technical know-how to bring that idea, that thought to life. And that's what I think these tools, right, are doing for us. They make your ideas come to life, right, in a way that will that would make life easy for you. Yeah, like Bolu said, let me even look at the chats. Some people are saying certain things. Even see, one thing I've come to know is that okay, this is not a thing of my tricks, right? This is what I'm just buttressing the fact that even for something as simple as this, right? I didn't have to sit down and say, okay, let me start writing out questions I can ask this person, right? In just split seconds. Because I know if I had done that, it probably might take me 1 hour. Okay, put down notes. But I can tell you that with just those prompts, in less than 1 minute, I had my questions that I want to ask. But did I just use those questions as they came? No. I knocked some off. I retweaked a few, right? And I came up with that. So, praise. I understand you. How can I become new? ChatGPT cannot answer some questions, obviously, right? And true, like Bolu Tife said, while these tools come in handy, some persons would not still be able to leverage it because they are not thinkers. They don't know how to use it, right? Wow. I think one of these days, each of you would have to come and speak as keynote speakers on in one of our webinars, because having 6 of you, I'm asking myself, how would I be able to manage the experience, the knowledge that you guys have within very few moments? But I'm glad that you guys have been able to do justice. Now, before we go, right? I know some persons have questions, right? But before we go to questions, right? Prof, I have a question for you, right? And the question I would have is the current state of design education, because you're a prof, right? What do you think, right? People who what do you think educators, right, need to do better, right, in order to prepare the next generation of designers, right, in terms of impacting knowledge? Madam Bello mentioned the fact that she has students that she teaches, right? She's an educator in that regard, right? But with respect to formal education, what do you think educators need to do, right, to prepare the next generation of designers? Because after the Gen Zs, don't forget, we look back at Gen Y, Gen X, right, baby boomers, late baby boomers, which are the Gen Y, Gen X, the Gen Ys, which are the millennials, the Gen Zs. You guys are the one in vogue now, right? But don't forget, there's the 10-year-old child, right, who is also acquainted with design technologies, access to the internet, right? I think that generation is going to be called the Generation Alpha, right? When that child, Generation Alpha, gets to this state that you are in, that I'm in, what you know might now become irrelevant. You might now be seen as the old school, right? So, Prof, can you just tell us what educators need to do? Thank you very much.
I think this is a good question for me. Over the years, I've always told students when they come into the classroom that your teacher is only responsible for 25% of what you're going to learn. You are going to learn everything by yourself. So one of the focus that I have for any classroom is to help the student know how to find knowledge. And today, guess what? ChatGPT, AI, they're going to help a lot. In our own generation, when the internet came along and we had things like Ask Jeeves, you know, I mean, nobody knows who Ask Jeeves is. That was the predecessor of Google. So knowing how to search is what Google perfected and became the company they are today. knowing how to gather information, knowing how to seek that information. So in the old days, before any design can happen, research used to be in the library. You go, get in your car, drive to the library, look for the relevant books, and then do your research and come back to the studio. Today, you sit in your studio, you have access to thousands of collections and libraries around the world. Where do you look for specific information? If educators can help students with that and help them understand that technology would always change very frequently. I was glad to hear my sister talk about changing her equipment every 2 years. For me, every 3 years, I do a full evaluation. What do I keep? What do I throw out? Because things are going to change and things are changing as we speak. So the educator has to give the student confidence, knowing how to get information, make the information into knowledge, and use the knowledge in their design or wherever they find themselves in life. We may think, oh, we're going to train graphic designers. They may end up somewhere else. But the tools that you give them when they're with you will stay for life. So my advice to educators would be to gear up themselves, learn to find information, the right people who might have those information or knowledge, seek people out, have your own lists that you can direct students to where they can find knowledge, because you're not going to be there with them for their life. Teach them to drive and they will always know how to drive. So that's it.
Wow.
Nothing to add.
Wow, Prof, thank you very much for that. Let's look at still one question, this thing from man, I'm blown away by okay, just a random question to every panelist here. I'm sure in 10, 20 years time, right, would you still be practicing design, right? And on what scale, what level, right? Michael Beru is, I think, in his 70s, 80s. Paula Shah is also in maybe 74, right? I don't know how old Susan Carey is. And a couple of them, right? But they're still relevant, right? Emmanuel, rather. Would you be practicing design 20 years time, or would you have gone into real estate business, or what?
So for me, the long-term goal is to consult, right, in the design field. So I don't want to be that person that sits down for too long trying to figure out how to move screens or decide what a user's experience should be. Like, I want to go beyond just that basic guy to someone who would sit with millions of practitioners and tell them what I think is achievable or not, based off my experience and then the insights that I have within the field. So yes, I would be, but more consultancy.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bolutife, what about you?
Well, for me, actually, the direction my career is going right now is taking more shape. So I can say confidently now that, you know, I want to maybe not totally be on 100% scale pushing pixels. Say I want to do like a 50-50 strategy and design, right? And that's because I know that they go hand in hand, you get, but I love, like what I always say when I put stuff out is I love to see the brands that I work on thrive, right? Something that always inspires me to do great work is because I know that I have the capacity to shape the entire future of a company with my brand design, right? So it always inspires me to maybe want to do much more than I'm expected to do, or want to do something that I know that will be sustainable. So yeah, that's what I like to say that I would. I'm considering opening a design studio later, mentor people, but then basically I know that I love design too much to leave it. But yeah, I'll still be doing design in 10, 20 years. I'm sure of that.
Wow, wow. Thank you very much for that. Praise, what about
Thank
you?
Well, yes. Yes, I'll still do design. I'll still use my software. I enjoy creating as much as I enjoy thinking. So I'll still do both of them in 10, 20, 30 years. Honestly, there's nothing else to do other than design anyways. Um, um, I think that what I want, I know for sure. Here's what I know for sure. I know that I enjoy helping people achieve their dreams. I'm not a Steve Jobs. I'm not a Zuckerberg. I'm more of a Johnny Ives, or more appropriately I've gotten her name, the Facebook COO. You guys know she just resigned anyways. I'm more those kind of people who love. I'm attracted to people who are audacious, and I like to leech onto them and then help them achieve their goals. I think 10, 20 years from now, I'll still be doing that. The only difference is that the goals I would be helping to achieve would be more complex and bigger, and hopefully would have the capacity to affect 1 billion people. And essentially, the goal is to do everything with design. I think that's what will happen in the next 1 to 2 decades. I'll still be a designer, that's for sure.
Wow, wow. That's good to know. Madam Bello.
Okay. You said 10 to 20 years.
20 years. You know, you'll be getting to 70.
Let me clarify that. I don't see myself sitting in the front of computer design in the next 20 years, because, you know, for a female, it comes with so many health issues. You have some, you know, child, when you give birth to children, you comes with back pains and all other things, you know. But fine.
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am.
Yes?
I want you to, in your response, I don't know how I missed that, right? I mean, that would also help the female designers
Yes.
within us, Bolutika as well. You are a mother of 4, right?
Yes.
So talk to us how you are able to manage that, because men can easily do it but as a woman, right? Just touch on that as well while you're giving me your response. Thank you.
Okay. One thing is that what I found in this process of growth is this. Apart from building your brand, build your personality. If you build your personality, when you are temporarily out of the show, when you come back, they will still be waiting for you. Because my time of experience in childbearing, I do leave the space of work for almost a year. I don't go to work at all, because it was a tough one for me, all my 4 children. But what I said apart from building your brand, you build your personality, because, you know, there are so many behavioral attitude in this gen. I just imagine now, if you have this attitude, will this take you a long way? You know, people love when you have empathy, your sense of, you know, you are so coordinated.
Responsibility.
And maybe because that is one of the one thing that we women always embrace. You are so coordinated, you have empathy, and people will always, you are open-minded. People will always come for you at every point in time. They want to see you. Even when you are out of the show, when you come back, they are still waiting for you. So one thing about that is just that once you build your brand and your personality, even if you are out of show, during that time when I'm not in the office, when I have people working for me, even if they are not as effective as I am, if they can't deliver, but yet whenever I come back, I will still stay relevant. So that has been my, you know, the ability to create an environment for people to, like, apart from being a family, a client, you make them your family. You let them be truth, be original. Let them see you. When you are weak, let them know you are weak. When you are strong, let them know you are strong. Don't fake it. So that has kept me going. So in the next 20 years, I don't see myself because, you know, apart from that, design has gave way for me to imagine other things. I'm into food processing and I'm also an importer. So if I don't say food processing, as I practically use that as a project that I want to see how it's going to be accepted, just because of my always diverting to other things that has to go with design, not necessarily designing on the system, you understand? So apart from that, I'd love to see, my future dream is what Bolanwole Banwo is doing, having a female designer. The female designers they're not embracing design like the way it should be, because I got to see myself whenever I'm in a group chatting and maybe sending my design and everything, and and I just, oh, does that mean that there is no, but you start to explain yourself that no, I'm a female and all that. So the female, I hope to see a way to mentor the female. So it's also a big deal. It's a big thing. So if I'm not in the design space, I'll still be relevant in the sector, in the field. So that is my plan for the next 20 years. But next 10 years, I will still be designing. I'm doing my printing.
Nice. Prof, what about you?
For me, in the next 20 years, I would have taught more teachers about design and how to take it down to the level of primary school so that they start from there. I would have talked to more proprietors of schools to start teaching design at an early age. I would have talked to many ministries of education to include design as one of the basic courses from primary school level. 20 years, I would have told more stories, and I wish to tell more stories about how it all started, how it's going, just to help people understand that we came from somewhere and it's going to go somewhere. And by then, of course, I'm a storyteller as well. I may not be speaking with a clear voice like this. Maybe at that time I'll be like, when I was your age, we used to have a studio down at Lekki where we hang out every afternoon. Maybe that's how I'll be then. Who knows? But God willing, that I will still be involved in design one way or the other, but at a level where I'm teaching leaders and company leaders about design. So I'll become more a generalist at that time.
Wow. Man, I just don't know what to say, but I just want to say thank you very much to everyone, right? Can you spare our audience questions? I know there are a couple of questions in the chat box. Someone says, with respect to evolving, right? If we are to evolve constantly as designers, right, to what extent should there be a limit in the things we learn? Should we remain generalist or should we niche, right? Anyone wants to take a shot at that?
I don't mind saying something about that, because as we are growing, we have areas that we really like and areas we don't, whether we like it or not. We're already niche one way or the other. But being a generalist provides the foundation where whatever you're being niche at would sit on. So we're going to be both, and there's not going to be a limit to learning.
Wow. And to add to what you said, right, is the fact that, like we said, barrier to entry is very low, right? So certain persons they are not grounded on their foundation is not what it's meant to be, right? Some persons just buy laptops and all that, and they move on. They just install Photoshop, and that's what they build on. all true, right? But there's certain persons who had what is required for a foundation, right, to be a designer, right? And that made them more generalist, right? However, they were able to specialize. Some have, there are some terminologies for this kind of designers. You have the generalist, you have the specialist. The generalists are just the horizontal shaped designer. Specialists are vertical, right? T-shaped are what many people feel a designer should be, right? You have the horizontal and you have the vertical, right? However, there's something called the X-shaped designer, right? That person knows beyond design, knows management, knows business, knows things that are outside of design, right? So I think as designers, one needs to develop to that point where you are not just even a T-shaped designer, but an X-shaped designer. You understand business, you understand design niches, and you have a broad knowledge of what design has to offer. Someone said another question. Okay, Bolitiver says, I think being assertive as a female designer or techie is a challenge in a male-dominated industry, which is actually true. I wish female design initiatives could talk to that more. I don't know okay, I know that she quotes Africa. There's the female designers movement. I don't know of any other female design initiative but I think, Bolitiver, you can start one, right? And probably see how you can lend your voice to that. How can we sell brand strategy? I don't think this is, I want us to stay on point. If we start brand strategy.
For the sake of,
Okay.
let me try and answer. I think he asked a longer question. He said, how can we sell brand strategy? Selling logo design and product design is easier due to the fact that you can show your work. The truth is, you can actually show your strategy work. Strategy is rubbish if there are no results. So that's why I simply say, so answer your question is really dependent on what you think brand strategy is, because I have a totally different idea from the popular idea of what brand strategy is. But if you think brand strategy is vision, mission, and the likes, I think a really cool way to sell it is to really talk about the results. You have to figure out what exactly is having those things supposed to do for the business, and then show them the things you had done before, right? Like, I did vision statement for these guys, and this is where they got to once they had this. I'm going to give a good example, and I hope it helps. I had a conversation with the client very recently. This is a very recent conversation, and it was supposed to be a full-scale brand consultancy project, but we streamlined it down to just brand strategy. And I said 2 lines, and I hope those lines help you. I told him, I said, in the last 2 years, I have worked with XYZ to define their brand messaging. And in that line, they have used this to improve their pitch deck, which has gotten them an increase in investors. That's what I said, right? He's a startup, he cares about investors. And so he can take that result and trace it back to the value of what you're offering him. So if you can be confident that your vision, your mission, and whatnot would solve a specific problem, like him getting investors, or him being able to talk about his business properly, or his team being able to become more independent in how they carry out their jobs. If you can figure out the result of your strategy, then you can sell it, right? So you have to know the results of strategy. Strategy is not just thinking, right? A strategy cannot be good or bad until you measure the results that it creates, right? So if what you're doing does not have results, then maybe you're not doing strategy. But if it has results, sell those results. Don't sell the thinking. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you. Prof, you want to add to it?
Yes. Years ago, my mentor and boss walked into a company that needed a brochure. Okay. After the conversation, they ended up hiring a new receptionist and not doing a brochure. You have to understand how the business works, what they're looking for, what the problem is, and look for the strategy that you're going to use to resolve that problem. It's not always going to end up as a design project or as a new product. It may just be a change in the system that the organization is working, and that is design. This is why design is such an important topic for us to keep talking about these things. For me, in my own recent example, I had a client tell me, "Are you trying to talk yourself out of a job?" And I said, "No, I did not come here to design a new logo for you, but to solve your problem." So you have to use strategy, research and strategy as the foundation of everything that you do. And that has to be sold as an important aspect of anything you're doing. So that's what I want to encourage you in.
Wow, thank you very much. Bolu, your hand is raised. Bolu Tife, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a bit. I mean, I wanted to add to what Prof said, right? So measurement is key. Is very important in brand design, right? And just as the Prof also mentioned, right? So I give you like I also mentioned I mentioned in the chat that it's very important to be backed by data, because people are moved by facts, right? If to show that I'm not all talk, right? So to be able to get people's attention, you need to have sources, right? So I give you an example. I approached a client one day, and I was like, okay, yeah, this what you have is not going to work. And then he went about an hour showing me 1,001 things why what they have currently works. I was like, okay, no problem. I left the meeting and then I went back to do research, find data and all of that. I came back to him, made a presentation, and right there on the spot, he decided that they were going to go for it, because I went to do research, get data, get what they currently had. I needed to solve that problem because I knew it was going to cost them a lot of money in nearest future, because they were planning to go big. I'm like, okay, yeah, you are going to infringe on somebody's like a major corporation's identity if you go public with this, right? And then it made sense to them. I showed them what the people that I was talking about, the corporation I was talking about, I brought it to them. I was like, okay, you guys compare and contrast, right? They were the ones who made the judgment themselves. They passed the judgment on themselves, and they were ready to go all out on the project, right? So yeah, you need to have be backed by data, do your research, extensive research. You need to have communication skills, and you need to have storytelling skills. Very important. The ability to sway any person is the art of storytelling. Really, you may not be doing anything extraordinary, but the way you tell the story and connect with them, it makes the great impact, right? To be able to make you validate you that you know what you're doing, right? And then you need to have very good presentation skills. Those are the things that I'd like to add. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I2C asked the question. It says for Prof and Madam Shakira, through the transitions in graphic design, what have you found constant all through? Right? I don't know, maybe it was on the call when I think Prof talked on it. I don't know if Praise also talked on it. What will be constant all through? But Prof, would you want to touch on that? Times and seasons change, but certain things will remain constant, right? What do you think will be constant all through?
I think I would encourage him to watch the recording when you publish it, because we have to understand again that yes, seasons will change, things will change, but one thing that is going to be core in everything we do as humans, whether it's organic design or strategized design, the one thing is design.
The one thing is design. Design will always be design. Wow. And design, like you said, is not just visual, right? It cuts across a lot of things, right? Operations, systems, and all that. Let me see if there's any other questions. Okay. Someone's okay. Okay. I think that's it. Now, your last words, not your last words, your parting words for this session. Michael, what are your parting words? Michael, Emmanuel, what are your parting words?
Yeah, I can hear you. So I think my parting words would be just ensure that you're consistent, right? And you're committed to your craft. Honestly, because like I always tell people is the best way to grow is to be consistent and committed to something, and you actually grow. So consistency and commitment is what will help you like really, really get there fast.
Wow. Thank you very much. Bolutife, the parting words.
Well, something I always say is in design, it's so easy to be frustrated, right? Especially when you interface with a lot of people or interface with a lot of clients and all of that. It is very easy to be frustrated. But I think something that will drive you is passion. To keep moving forward, right? So you need to have what you stand for. You need to have an essence, basically. If you're coming into design space or in the tech spaces, it's because people say that there is money in it. I think you should rethink it because you're going to, there will be a lot of challenges on the way. So staying true to your essence, you want to solve problems. If you are passionate about helping people out, those are things that will help you keep going. And you hear a lot of us saying, on this panel saying that we still want to do the design in 10, 20 years to come. And it's because I think that we have found our true essence, and we know that we're not just doing it by opening Adobe or CorelDRAW and doing stuff. It is about being passionate about what we do and being ready to solve problems, even from complex one at that. Yeah, so thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. Praise, your parting words.
I'm going to try and say them in sentences. If you say 5, 6 sentences, like a list. First one is passion lasts. There's only so much money. There's only so much distance wanting to earn money can take you. Passion lasts. So even if you don't start it because of it, if you don't find it anytime soon, you would inevitably stop doing design. That's one. The other one is whatever you think you know about design is a tip of the iceberg. 20 years from now, whatever you think you know about design will still remain a tip of the iceberg. The more you know, the more you don't know. And that's the fun of it. The third thing, and probably the last thing, the third then fourth thing. The third thing is if you're a beginner, I'm a beginner, I mean you have less than 2 years of experience. Never say no to anything. I don't care if it is the most demeaning thing. No, that's harsh, but never say no. Never say no. I still remember I used Adobe Fireworks. I didn't know what I used it for, but I did. I don't know what it does till today. Man, I used it. I just always said yes. And yes is what got me to where I am, right? I didn't know communications strategy before I took up the role. I just said, yes, I'm going to take it on and I'll figure it out. Never say no as a beginner. Never, ever. Generally as a designer, never say no, but at some point you need to. But as a beginner, you need all the knowledge you can get. Never say no. The next one is knowledge. There are some things you learn now you will never understand. Time remains a huge factor in growth. No matter if you take, if you take good strategy, bad strategy, or you take strategy for organization, or you take a very huge advanced design book and you read it cover to cover 3 times in a row, you might not understand a single thing now. But in 4 years or 5 years, it would make sense. It's not just about learning. Sometimes you need to learn at the right time, but you don't know if you're learning at the right time. So just learn, but don't be hard on yourself when you don't understand it. One day you will. I still remember there are things that I do now. I learned them 6 years ago, right? I have my strategy notebook 6 years ago that I wrote. I opened it a few months ago and I was thinking, I'm like, so this is the thing I wrote that time. Wow. And then I just wrote it. I just didn't know what it meant, right? So knowledge and time equals value most times, right? There's some kind of knowledge you need to know for other things to make sense, right? But learn regardless. But don't be hard on yourself when you don't fully understand, because all you need most time is time. And then the last one, and frankly the most important one, is our tools shape us and you shape your tools. Honestly, you understand this, every other thing is great to do. Thank you guys.
Wow.
Thanks.
Wow. Praise. Yeah. You deserve a round of applause for that. But let me go to other people. Let's hear their thoughts. Madam Bello.
Okay, I would say, you know, the true definition of design is adaptation. We must be ready and continue to expand our scope of knowledge. And we should always remember, it's never too late to start learning about technology and adapting to new trends. With a positive attitude and willingness to learn, we can stay relevant and competitive in the rapidly changing technology landscape. So God bless designers, God bless Nigeria.
Wow. It's never too late to learn, right? It's never too late to learn. It's never too late to learn. Over to you, Prof. Your parting words.
There's something we don't always talk about in design circles: humility. Humility will keep you on the track. You can learn from your clients, you can learn from your friends, you can learn from your mother, you can learn from your brother, things to do with design. Being a designer does not mean it's an exclusive thing. Everybody is a designer. We just are very good at it. But be humble, learn from others, and keep your head down. It really helps. Number 2, stay passionate. The more you learn, the more passionate you become. And the more passionate you have, the longer you last. And it includes learning. It includes attending conferences that we've been told by Haja. It's everything that you're doing today that's going to fuel your tomorrow. So stay hot.
Wow. Man, I knew I was in for it. I knew this webinar was going to be one with dynamic insights, thought-provoking conversations. And I must say, thank you very much to all the speakers, Emmanuel, Bolutife, Praise, Madam Shakira, Prof. Shegun, for agreeing to do this with me at very short notice. Prof is joining us all the way from Canada. And I know that, I don't know if you're 6 hours behind us or 7 hours behind us, probably around that time, right? But you probably should be busy doing some other things. But I'm glad that you agreed to do this, because I don't know who else I would have reached out to of your generation, right, who will do justice to this. But thank you very much for always being very open to share knowledge and take advantage of opportunities like this. 7 hours ahead. Okay, yeah. So thank you very much for that, Madam Shakira. This is to thank you very much, because I know when I reached out to you, it came as a shock to you. Like you said, you're not one who is given to public speaking, speaking to people and all that. But I love the fact that you took it upon yourself to say, okay, this is a challenge for me, right? And see how beautiful you look on the flyer, right? A Muslim, someone with Muslim background, your hijab just sits well on you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for agreeing to do this with me. Doing it afraid, like you said, and I'm sure you learned a lot. You've been able to connect with Praise, Prince of Gen Z. Praise has so much knowledge. Like I ask myself, how can someone his age, right, be so vast and deep, right? It's just mind blowing. But I'm glad that you are able to connect with a couple of Gen Zs and Gen Y. Please follow them. You can learn anything on it or two from the social media platforms and all that. Prof, thank you very much. Praise, thank you very much for agreeing to do this, right? I'm speechless. I don't know what to say about you, but you're just an amazing person. You're just an amazing person. I'm happy that I'm able to connect you and Prof together. But I must say that I think I would need to have sessions where you guys will just go all out, right? The next webinar, I'm thinking is going to be on AI, right? I'm thinking of what the topic will be. I know some will say, "Oh, ChatGPT." No, I'm thinking of how designers can leverage it, right? Because people are I don't know what is, whether panicky or feeling that, oh, this, but I think while there are many fears and all that, I think designers can leverage it, right? So I'm trying to look out for who I think will be best fit to talk about AI and how designers can leverage it, right? For people in the community, you will get details of all the handles. I'm sure they are already sharing it in the comment section, right? But you get details of all the handles of the speakers. They are tagged on all the creatives that were shared on social media, so you can follow them, engage with them, and reach out to them. Bolutife, thank you also for agreeing to do this with me. I know you've been doing amazingly well, right? And it's glad to see female designers who are also excelling, right? And that's why I'm glad that with what Bolani Banwo is doing and other female designers who are doing exceptionally well. Please, you guys need to come out, be more visible, right? Be more visible, be more visible. I know how I racked my head. I had to enter a design. I think I went on, I don't know where I went on. I just racked myself, started checking for female designers. I couldn't think off the top of my head, right? So please be more visible and all that. Emmanuel, rather. I usually mix up both names. Thank you very much for also doing this with me. I'm proud of you. I'm proud to see how far you've come, right? I know when I started doing design, I don't think you have even ventured into the design space then. But to see the strides that you've made in the design space is one that is enviable, right? When I got to know that you had a couple of things to do with what's this agency? Remind me where you did your marketing stuff with Ook agency, right? The Ook creative agency. I don't know if that's what they're called. I'm like, wow, right? And then I saw you moved on to Number. I was like, I'm like, wow. I think I'm sleeping on a bicycle, right? And that's one thing. People who are coming behind you, right? If you feel that, oh, you've arrived, you'll be shocked at what people coming behind you would achieve in shorter time, right? And that's why I don't look down on anyone, right? Prof said something very striking. humility, right? There's no one I can't learn from, right? With the knowledge I've had, experience I've had, I can learn from anyone. I can learn from anyone and everyone, right? Irrespective of who you are, the level you are. As long as you have the knowledge I seek, you have me already, right? So just keep at it. And I want to say thank you once again to everyone who has joined. A couple of people have left the call, maybe for one reason or the other, but this is to say thank you very much for joining. Those who joined from the beginning till the end, thank you very much. We have a YouTube channel, and this session will be uploaded on that channel, right? Please feel free to share the link to the channel once it's ready, so people within your circle, right, can learn from you and also learn from others, and also share or learn from what you've shared, your thoughts on the subject, because I know a couple of people who would have loved to join the session who could not, but would have access to glean from all the insights you've shared. Once again, thank you very much. I can say that this is 2 hours, 45 minutes well spent. I can't thank you enough. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye.